For 32 years, Real Madrid lived in a ghost house. Between 1966 and 1998, the greatest club in history, the King of Europe, the inventor of the European Cup, forgot how to wear its own crown. It is difficult for a modern fan to understand the magnitude of this drought. We are used to seeing Real Madrid lift the Champions League trophy with an air of inevitability. But for an entire generation of Madridistas, fathers, sons, and grandfathers, the European Cup was not a reality. It was a memory. It was a black and white film reel gathering dust in the archives. It was a story told by older men about Di Stefano and Gento, a myth that seemed increasingly distant from the harsh reality of the present. This is the story of La Septima. Not just a football match, but an exorcism. The story of how Real Madrid faced its own demons, endured 3 decades of humiliation, and finally, in one night in Amsterdam, reclaimed its soul. To understand the obsession with the 7th European Cup, we must first feel the weight of the silence. After winning the 6th title in 1966 with the famous Yí team, entirely composed of Spanish players, the club entered a dark tunnel. At first, it seemed like a temporary dip. But years turned into decades. Great players arrived and left without ever touching the Holy Grail. The 1970s passed without glory. The 1980s brought the magnificent Quinta del Buitre, Butragueño, Míchel, Sanchís, a team that played beautiful football and dominated Spain with 5 consecutive league titles. Yet, in Europe, they were cursed. They suffered painful defeats against Bayern Munich, heavy losses against AC Milan. They reached the semi-finals, they touched the dream, but they always fell short. The European Cup became a psychological monster eating away at the club's confidence. The lowest point came in 1981. Real Madrid actually reached the final in Paris against Liverpool. It was a chance to end the drought after 15 years. But in a tight, tactical game, Alan Kennedy scored late for the English side. Madrid lost. The wound deepened. By the late 90s, the situation was critical. 32 years had passed since the last title. The club was financially unstable. The pressure from the press and the fans was suffocating. The 1997 to 1998 season began under a cloud of pessimism. The manager was Jupp Heynckes, a German tactician who struggled to control a dressing room full of strong personalities. In La Liga, the team was a disaster. They were losing to mediocre teams, drifting down the table, eventually finishing 4th. But in the Champions League, something strange was happening. In Europe, this dysfunctional team transformed. They survived the group stages. They destroyed Bayer Leverkusen in the quarter-finals. In the semi-finals, they faced the reigning champions, Borussia Dortmund. That tie is remembered for the bizarre incident where the goalpost collapsed at the Bernabéu before kickoff, delaying the match by over an hour. It felt like an omen of chaos. But Madrid won 2-0 at home and defended with their lives in Germany to reach the final. They were going to Amsterdam. The final hurdle. But waiting for them was not just any opponent. It was Juventus. The Juventus of 1998 was arguably the best team on the planet. They were playing their 3rd consecutive Champions League final. They had Zinedine Zidane, the maestro, in his prime. They had Alessandro Del Piero, Edgar Davids, Didier Deschamps. They were a machine of physical power and tactical perfection. Real Madrid, by comparison, looked fragile. They were the underdogs. Nobody gave them a chance. The narrative was written. Juventus would crush the romantic but broken Spanish side. But finals are not played on paper. They are played in the mind. On May 20, 1998, the Amsterdam arena was tense. Real Madrid lined up with a mix of veterans and new stars. The captain, Manolo Sanchís, was the last survivor of the Quinta del Buitre, playing with a broken finger, desperate to win the trophy his father had won in 1966. Fernando Hierro, the leader of the defense. Roberto Carlos, the explosive Brazilian on the left. Fernando Redondo, the elegant prince of the midfield. And up front, a young Raul Gonzalez alongside Fernando Morientes and Predrag Mijatovic. The match began as a tactical chess game. Juventus tried to impose their physical rhythm. Zidane floated between the lines, dangerous and elusive. Davids bit at the heels of Redondo. Real Madrid, knowing their defensive frailties in the league, played with surprising discipline. Hierro and Sanchís were titans at the back, repelling every Italian attack. Ilgner, the goalkeeper, made crucial saves against Inzaghi and Del Piero. As the minutes ticked by, the fear in the Madrid fans turned into hope. Juventus was not invincible. They were frustrated. Then came the 66th minute. A moment frozen in time. A cross came in from the right side by Panucci. The Juventus defense, usually so perfect, failed to clear it properly. The ball fell to Roberto Carlos on the edge of the box. His shot was deflected, looping into the path of Predrag Mijatovic. The Montenegrin striker was arguably the coolest man in the stadium. He controlled the ball, skipping past the Juventus goalkeeper Peruzzi. For a split second, time stopped. The angle was tight. A defender was rushing back to the line. Mijatovic didn't smash it, he caressed it. The ball rolled into the net. 1-0. The explosion of sound from the Madrid end was not just joy, it was relief. It was the release of 32 years of held breath. But the game was not over. Juventus, wounded, threw everything forward. Zidane orchestrated attacks, Davids drove forward, Inzaghi lurked in the box. The last 20 minutes were an eternity. Every clearance by Hierro felt like a victory. Every tackle by Redondo was celebrated like a goal. The Madrid players were exhausted, running on adrenaline and the weight of history. They were not just defending a lead, they were defending the honor of the club. When the referee blew the final whistle, players collapsed. Sanchís wept openly. He had finally closed the circle. The curse was broken. The ghost of 1966 was exorcised. Real Madrid were kings of Europe once again. La Septima was home. This victory changed everything. It was the bridge between the old Madrid and the modern era. It saved the club from financial ruin. It restored the winning DNA. Without La Septima, there would be no Galacticos, no Zidane volley in Glasgow, no La Decima. That night in Amsterdam reminded the world of a simple truth: form is temporary, but royalty is permanent. Real Madrid had walked through the desert for 32 years, only to realize that the throne had been waiting for them all along.
Madrid, unfiltered.